Star Wars 7x7 bonus episode. All right, Sunday at Celebration featured some new reveals about the Bad Batch Season 2, and the trailer that you saw online is not exactly what was shown at the panel at Celebration. So I'll dig into all of that on this bonus episode. Punch it! Hey Rebel Riser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So Celebration is over and I am relaxing here by the pool. That's obvious for the video version folks, and for the audio version folks, well, yeah, you know, it's a pool. That's exciting. Of course, it's a very tiny pool, which I will show for the video folks, but hey, it gets the job done, right? So what a way to finally rest and relax after a long and crazy celebration this has been. But we're not here to talk about how long a crazy celebration was on this particular episode. We are here to talk about the Bad Batch Season 2 panel that happened as the headline event of Celebration Sunday. So I'll start out by saying that early this morning I put out a tweet saying that if they were still planning on keeping Wednesdays as a release schedule, and if they were still planning on not overlapping, and a couple of other if-thens, then the only logical result for when they would debut the Bad Batch was a short window from June 29th to August 24th, because no Star Wars stuff is happening there, and from August 31st onward it's Andor, and then it's Willow, right? So it turns out that apparently they're going to either A, overlap, or B, move away from the Wednesday only situation, because they announced that Bad Batch Season 2 is going to debut in fall of 2022. They didn't say how many episodes there are going to be, but that is what we know so far. And the panel itself was good fun, and D. Bradley Baker was in fine form, doing his voices for all of the Bad Batch and a couple of extras as well. There was a brief scene reading from Episode 7, which featured the Bad Batch trapped on Braca, the junk planet that we also see in Jedi Fallen Order. And when they'd been trapped by Crosshair inside that ship where they were about to fire up the engine, so it was either get burned by the engines or get shot by Crosshair. And so, yeah, there was a scene reading where Michelle Ong as Omega and D. Bradley Baker as the members of the Bad Batch, and also as Crosshair, like, they performed that scene right live on stage, and it really was amazing just to watch them work in general, and also specifically just to see D. Bradley Baker cycle through the voices so easily. It reminds me of Mark Thompson and his particular expertise in cycling through voices as well. And from there, they said, do you want to see a clip? And so they showed a clip. They showed a clip that was basically an extension of something that you saw in the trailer. So there's a moment where Hunter and Echo are running along a beach and getting chased by a bunch of giant crabs. And then there's a moment where you see Omega dropping and rolling, and then, pulling out her crossbow and shooting a couple laser arrows at giant crabs. So all that is from this scene where Tech is talking to Omega about needing to do her studying. Omega is looking at a data pad that has a bunch of Imperial ships on it, and he's saying how important it is to learn the Imperial specs and ships and whatnot, and she's having a very kid-like, it's a beautiful day out, I don't want to do this. And then Hunter and Echo have to radio in and say, yeah, we're in trouble because we're getting chased by these giant crabs, and so Tech and Omega are going to take off and help them, but the giant crabs end up attacking the Havoc Marauder, and chaos then ensues, but we don't see how they get out of the mess. That just cuts off in the middle of the action, basically. And the planet looks like if you cross Kashyyyk with Scarif, I guess. So they're calling it a tropical planet, but the trees at the shoreline are very Kashyyyk-like trees. And something else that apparently we're going to notice and was demonstrated a bit at the panel is that some time has passed between Season 1 and Season 2, and so the characters look older and their gear looks older. There's reference to a sort of kit-bashed feeling to it, and the colorful nature of their clothing is supposed to contrast more, dramatically, I guess, with the armor of the stormtroopers, as the clone troopers are conforming into stormtroopers, and as new conscripts are coming into stormtroopers, it's supposed to be that much more menacing by seeing them just completely monochromatic. So we'll talk about the trailer footage in just a second, but let's talk about what they showed at Celebration that wasn't in the trailer that debuted online. And this isn't necessarily going to be all of it. This is as much as I've got for you, and hopefully I've got the major points. But it starts out with essentially a little retrospective of season 1, and Kamino was our home, and seeing the fall of Tipoca City and the resolute expressions of the Bad Batch and Omega as they are about to leave, and the Imperial bombardment and Rampart, our new villain, watching it happen, and the Marauder having to escape. So that little brief recap is shown as part of the teaser footage that led it, or I guess that led into the teaser footage that they showed in the panel at Celebration. And other parts that were unfamiliar, there's another character that they didn't show in the trailer who is kind of looking at the clones and saying something about quality control, making a snide remark about our Bad Batch heroes. And Commander Cody is also back. He is looking at a procession of Imperial troopers and talking with Crosshair. And Cody is starting to wonder, and I'm sorry, I don't recall the exact dialogue, but he basically says to Crosshair, are you sure this is, the right thing? Is this, the way it should be happening? And Crosshair's response is basically, yeah, we're soldiers. We do what we must. And that's all there is to it. And there is a moment where he is lining up a shot through his sniper rifle, and he repeats that very chilling phrase, good soldiers follow orders. And there's a brief moment between Rampart and Crosshair as well, where Rampart is complimenting Crosshair on his dedication to the Empire. And the footage actually ended in the Celebration panel with that shot of Omega peering out at the Senate and seeing the dais rising, and Emperor Palpatine kind of looking up from his robe with his terrible eyes, and it cut to the Bad Batch logo at that point. So definitely structured differently also from the trailer that was released online. And you didn't get to hear him deliver the line that he delivers in the trailer that was released online, where he says it's time for a new era. And Sid is also not a part of the trailer that was shown at Celebration to the audience at the panel either. But it's Sid who actually starts the festivities in the trailer that was released online, and she has a voiceover line of, you can buy your freedom, you can have a future, isn't that what you want? And Hunter replies that they're already free, and Sid says, yeah, I don't think you've been paying attention to what's going on out there right now. And that's intercut with Omega hiding around a corner while a bunch of stormtroopers are running by. And then we get earlier in this trailer, the scene with the dais rising, and it's Palpatine and Masumeda is with him, and Palpatine says, it is time for a new era, whatever that means, which is naturally scary. And there was some talk at the panel about how remarkable it is to see the transition from the Republic to the Empire, and that, this doesn't necessarily happen overnight per se, that there are a lot of these building blocks that have to be put in place to make it happen. And that's what part of what we saw in season 1, and it's more of what we're going to see in season 2. Hunter, for his part, says that there are people out there who need their help, but what exactly that means, we don't know. I mean, it's not necessarily the formation of the Rebel Alliance, but maybe just some sort of nascent things, or just, mercenaries for good instead of mercenaries for either complete amorality or immorality, I guess. And we get a lot of jump cuts, and apparently, some new faces showing up naturally, which, not all of them can be identified. And Hunter says, we'll take all the allies we can get. There is some great space battle footage where we see the old troop transports from the Republic and some of the interceptor fighters, the ARC 170s, I believe, if I'm not terribly mistaken. And they are coming at the Marauder from behind and in front, and the Marauder makes a very daring move out of the way to let some of those ships crash into each other. And there does look to be a shot of Mount Tantus, I believe that's what it's called, which is the secret cloning facility that we see at the very end of season 1 of the Clone Wars, that our chief medical scientist from Kamino is being brought to at the end of the episode. And I guess technically, that's also the end of the season finale. So that seems like it's going to come back into play in some fashion. And it also looks like we're going to get our share of monsters back. There were a couple of memorable monsters in season 1. And most surprisingly, connection with somebody who survived Order 66, a Wookiee Padawan named Gunji. I believe that's how you pronounce that. So that is also a very exciting thing, and there's a lot of chatter online about that aspect of things as well. As for Crosshair, I don't think he has actually any dialogue in the trailer that they released online. I know it's definitely a lot less for him in this trailer compared to what it was with what they showed the panel. As far as his journey goes, there were some very pointed attempts to ask what Crosshair's situation will be in season 2, whether he can be redeemed, whether he will be redeemed, whether he even wants to be redeemed, and everybody was mum on that subject. I do think about Star Wars Resistance in this regard, because a lot of the creative team that was involved with Resistance is involved with the Bad Batch as well. And if you'll recall, Tamra Vora, who was part of Team Fireball, went over to the First Order but was eventually rescued and redeemed and came back to Team Fireball and saw what the First Order was and how terrible it was, and eventually left them. So just that alone makes me hold out hope for the possibility that Crosshair could come back to the Bad Batch, but I don't know if it's going to happen in season 2. That seems like, again, it would have to be something that would happen maybe toward the end of the series at this point, so it just depends, I guess, on how long the Bad Batch is actually going to run. But we know there's going to be a season 2. We know it's coming out in the fall of 2022, and that is what we have for you about the Bad Batch panel at Star Wars Celebration on Sunday. And of course, that's also going to do it for this bonus episode of the podcast. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.